You often emphasize, and I totally agree with you, the need to empower managers, newly appointed ones, to making mistakes and asking questions. Do you think that this kind of culture uh, is available currently at the corporate environment?
I don't want to sound like I'm selling you a surefire recipe for success. That's different. And I don't believe there is one. What I do, however, believe is so many people are surrendering choice.
So AI is increasingly entering the coaching space and every other space, to be honest, through pattern recognition, feedback simulation, and even role playing.
The challenge usually is that because there's this hierarchy, this relation naturally becomes strained.
In the Japanese culture, there is this idea that everybody is a manager.
I believe that a culture of psychological safety is something that's clearly needed in the modern world in a way that it would enable people to be able to make these mistakes, to be able to ask questions, and to be able to feel safe in failure. Yes, because it means taking risks, it means treading new paths, it means figuring out what people can do to go to new places and thus grow.
Often, some managers, especially the newly promoted ones, do speak about the imposter syndrome feeling, um, mainly in the cases where they might make some mistakes or not have answers to all the questions. They might feel that, am I in my legitimate position?
So, having a mentor and a coach in many organizations, it's actually thankfully in place. In fact, I think it's the opposite, Zainab, which is the senior leaders get it, but the people that are lower in the hierarchy, if I may use this term, don't, and that's a bigger shame.
Welcome to Melting Spices, the podcast where we explore what happens when different paths, cultures, and ideas come together to shape meaningful lives and careers. Today's guest is Tomasz Kropiewnicki, aka TK, an engineer turned leadership coach who now works with teams and C suite executives to unlock their best potential. In this episode, we talk about how to coach mindset, not just behavior, and why so many new managers burn out, how AI is entering the world of coaching, and how to design a career and a life that aligns with one's own choices. Let's dive in. Please feel free to share and comment and give us your feedback. It keeps the stories coming.
So, Tomasz, thank you for being my guest.
And thank you for inviting me.
Today, I want to start with something that I've seen you talk about in your previous webinars, training, seminars, etc. You often say that mindset is the software of our minds. Can you explain this metaphor or philosophy, which is particularly interesting to me because initially I'm a software engineer? And if you can also explain how does it relate to leadership?
Well, thank you for this great question. These people that know me would know that I'm also an ex-software engineer, so this kind of terminology is something that I'm quite well familiar with. But in a way, it's important to think about the mindset as the general set of principles and beliefs, right? Because everything is a kind of a belief. And the way I think about it is that we can all tell ourselves different stories. For instance, working with some clients, they really focus on external validation. Other people really focus on how competent they are. Others still focus on how they're being perceived by others in terms of status, authority, and so on. Right? These all are stories we're telling ourselves. Neither good or bad, right or wrong, but some things that we choose to believe in. The same way as if we install the software onto our computers. One would say that not everyone is technically adept, and it's sometimes difficult to install certain pieces of software. Sometimes when you look at your computer, you might have, well, hopefully you don't, dear viewers and you, Zainab, malware installed or dangerous software. The same can happen with the mindset. You might have installed something or caught something that is no longer serving you. And I think in terms of leadership, what is needed is finding the stories, the beliefs, the mindset that will help you, will be productive for you where you are in your situation and help you live the life you want to live.
Absolutely. Totally agree. It's like continuous improvement. So Thomas, you're currently coaching managers to be at their best performance. You often emphasize, and I totally agree with you, the need to empower managers, newly appointed ones, to making mistakes and asking questions. Do you think that this kind of culture uh, is available currently at the corporate environment?
Well, it's difficult. It depends on the original culture of the company, where the company originates from. Was the underlying culture bad? Because, we're all different. We all have a set of beliefs that we also carry from our parents, our country, our religions, the way we have been brought up. And in many, there's this culture of the fact that, well, if you're a leader, to have authority, you have to know everything. You have to make sure that you make the right decisions because, well, that's what managers do. I believe that a culture of psychological safety is something that's clearly needed in the modern world in a way that it would enable people to be able to make these mistakes, to be able to ask questions, and to be able to feel safe in failure. Yes, because it means taking risks. It means treading new paths. It means figuring out what people can do to go to new places and thus grow.
So often some managers, especially the newly promoted ones, do speak about the imposter syndrome feeling. Um, Mainly in the cases where they might make some mistakes or not have answers to all the questions, they might feel that, am I in my legitimate position? Is this something common that you've encountered throughout your experience? And is there a way to remediate or heal this feeling?
Well, that's a good question. It's completely natural to feel like an imposter just because, as human beings, we've evolved to run away from danger. When we've been in caves or other places back in nature thousands and thousands of years ago, we had to be worried about prey. We had to be, constantly seeking to survive. And naturally and genetically, we developed a mindset that is afraid of danger. Now we see danger everywhere, even in 2025. What happens is, if we are being appointed to a role that even if we're competent, but we haven't tried before, we're always going to get negative thoughts. It's just a question of our human nature. The imposter syndrome is perfectly fine, perfectly normal, and really most people get it. Some don't. Some have the interesting traits that make them really self-assured. There's obviously two sides of the same coin, so that happens. I think there's ways to remediate it. The one thing I always recommend people do is to think about and talk about what is it that got them where they are now. Why is it that they have been promoted, right? And really focus on the positive side. But at the end of the day, my best advice is just to accept it. Just say, hey, everyone's having imposter syndrome. It's just normal. I'm just going to feel this way and just go on like this. It will fade away with time. And I think this is the best strategy because sometimes when you're trying to rationalize, really actively fight it, it might fight back.
Many organizations actually struggle to keep employees engaged and performing, maybe especially in the cases where managers are newly promoted, even if sometimes the structures and the rules are very clear on paper. What do you think is the reason behind this?
Oh, well, there's loads of reasons. And, I think It's a good question, but a general one. What I find is most often, and it doesn't have to be the case for you, our dear listener, is the fact that people don't necessarily know what's expected of them. I don't mean that they don't get the tasks. Managers often don't, but people don't understand the mission and vision. What is the value that they're adding? What is it that they'll be, fed back on? How will they be evaluated? These things sometimes are difficult to answer, but if an employee does not have the answer, a new manager does not know, what is it exactly that they should be aiming for, this can be really demotivating, and that's what I usually see.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, even when a job description is there are some other struggles that are coming in the way, and um, then they were not expected before, so not planned for. So let me bring in a personal experience. So in my early years of experience, actually, my first job, I started as a junior project manager. So I had to lead some projects and a team of many members. Many of them had way more years of experience than I did at that time. So they had some trouble adapting to having a junior project manager right from uni, which made it difficult for me to meet their expectations, to follow up with them and make sure that we reach the deadlines, that the performance is good, etc. So after a year, and so I ended up just, quitting because it was too much to handle. Many things from the client to the management to the team, etc. What would you have advised me at that time? What do you think would have helped?
It's a very good point, and thank you for sharing your personal story. I've had a similar one when I started. I also managed people that were older and more experienced than me. Now, after all these years, the advice I would give the the younger you, or myself in in this particular situation, might be difficult, but I think it's something that I think would bring myself and hopefully the younger yourself, some respite in this situation, which is to have a real conversation with the people that you are serving as a leader about what is it that they think and want from you. So you can also have the same back, right? So you can always, when there's resentment, and hey, it is, right? There's the gender, the age difference, God knows what, right? Maybe their ambitions not being fulfilled. Maybe they don't like a certain thing you do. Who knows, right? Same for me, really. It's just like openly have this conversation saying, okay, well, it's tense, right? It seems like we lack trust in this team, right? There's something that's between us that's preventing us to trust each other. Now, without trust, it's difficult to build anything on this shaky foundation. So let's talk what it really is. Look, no consequences here. It will only help. Now, if this wonderful podcast releases before the 21st of July, I'm actually running a free Trust Accelerator on LinkedIn, a 5-day program for managers to actually tackle this problem of trust, to have these real conversations with people to help. Because you can reflect on your experience, Zainab, but not many people are actually willing to have these conversations, and it ends up in a way intended for you, a valued member of the team like yourself, someone with ambition and talent, left the organization, and it's a shame for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And talking about how communication and a good reportee manager relationship, um, later in my experience, I made sure to have good relationships with my managers and also, if I have a team, with my reportees, because I think that builds trust, as you said, improves engagement, and that improves KPIs and improves career growth as well. Tomasz, I want to talk about the manager, employee, corporate dynamics. When we um, talk about these feelings that maybe um, employees or managers equally might get, that maybe I'm not in my legitimate position, etc. How do you think the corporate culture is important in these cases to give safe space for everybody to acknowledge their limitations, maybe sometimes, and improve their knowledge, their experience, their performance, um, instead of focusing on these negative thoughts?
I've been focusing on it quite a lot, and I think, it's one of the most important things in the organization. The reason is, again, trust. It builds engagement. It helps people build also well-being. It improves performance. The challenge usually is that because there's this hierarchy, this relation naturally becomes strained. And the person that needs to care for this is actually the one being the leader in this hierarchy. Now, the challenge is that it might not be something that people get promoted for. It might not be something that managers, directors, senior leaders pay attention to as much. And in fact, barely anyone does. Now, because the challenge is when they need to be taught that, they usually have other problems. And managers usually focus on performance rather than the relationship. My advice is, when I coach leaders and senior leaders in these situations to talk about this relationship, is I help them go back to the experiences when they had a bad or a good relationship with their own leaders in their careers, and what has it changed for them. And this is when the penny drops for many of them.
Right. Talking about this, how important do you think for managers, it is for managers and senior managers to be coached and mentored even when they reach high levels in the corporate ladder? Do you think that mentorship is only for the juniors, or is it only for the seniors, or is it also important for the, let's say, C-suite executive level?
Well, it's a bit of a loaded question. Obviously, I believe that it is valuable because most of my clients that actually get my services get this, right? Get me as a coach, as a mentor. But the reason is, I think that, I'm always trying to make myself possibly dispensable, help the organization build the program, because I do not believe that a mentor is a temporary thing. It's a relationship that you have throughout your life. Not always we can rely on our elders, our parents in the modern society in many regions and countries, but mentors are dead. We've evolved to have them, we've always had them, but somehow in the modern world of the global village, we seem to have neglected this need. It's always been there, and it's always incredibly helpful, and anyone that got anywhere, I think, did it because there were some people helping them. They might not acknowledge that, might not want to give them a proper credit for this, but there were people helping them along. And great mentors know that it's all about paying back. So having a mentor and a coach, in many organizations, it's actually thankfully in place. In fact, I think it's the opposite, Zainab, which is the senior leaders get it, but the people that are lower in the hierarchy, if I may use this term, don't. And that's a bigger shame.
Absolutely, which brings me to something you had talked about in one of your previous trainings or webinars. You had mentioned that in the Japanese culture, there is this idea that everybody is a manager. I really like it a lot because indeed, everyone in the corporate world has something they manage. Maybe just a task, maybe just a project. But there is this feeling of, involvement and responsibility, and that is what drives the performance and the engagement. How does this mindset affect team collaboration and maybe power dynamics and the way you coach leadership today?
So that's an interesting one because I think nowadays I probably wouldn't necessarily say that. Because I would add one more thing. I mean, the Japanese have not been saying that, and I guess from this point of view, it is still correct. But I would say everyone can be a manager if they want to, even if they don't have a formal title. Now, this particular thing is if they want to, because many people choose not to. And I think it's important for us to accept their decision, right? Now, the question then is, if that's the case, what happens is they might not feel like they want to take ownership, because in this sense of this saying, it's everyone takes ownership of their work. Everyone feels responsible and cherishes what they do to, their own mission and standard. Now, there are some people that choose not to do that, and I think that's a huge shame. But I respect their decision. And, throughout my career, I've had people, individual contributors that rejected this notion of ownership. And the way I've been talking to them is saying, look, I get it, right? You might think that this is someone else's responsibility, but I guess we can no longer afford to think this way. I think in 2025, it's not something that can cut it. We all need to be managers. Now, what you might want to ask yourself is, if you really don't want to, is this the place for you to be? Because the demand is, or the culture is, that we really take ownership. Now, that's the way I'm dealing with it. Not every manager, sadly, has the opportunity, the directness to be able to have this conversation like this. But what I always help as a trainer, as a mentor, for managers, as a consultant, is for them to understand that they need to be clear about their expectations. What is it that they expect of people? And in this example, I was quite clear. And you know what? This person really picked it up. They've actually reflected on it, and I thought, well, actually, yeah, maybe, if I want to progress, I need to take ownership. And after a couple of years, they became a manager themselves. And in the next week, after this conversation, they actually started leading a part of the project in a bigger team. So that works. It's just people sometimes think that they can, not take ownership in the modern world. And there are places when this is still possible. And, if someone doesn't want to, I'm not forcing anyone. But if we are working in an environment that this is necessary, we need to be open about this expectation.
Absolutely. Sometimes it might be that people are not where they want to thrive, or maybe they just need a little push, like the person you were talking about. Let me divert to your personal experience, Tomasz. So from software engineering to agile leadership and then to coaching, you've taken quite big leaps. What internal compass or like mindset shift made you transition and helped you in all the steps of your career?
I wish I had one. In terms of knowing exactly where I'm going, I always looked at what's happening around me and what is it that can bring the most value to my environment, the world I'm living in. What is it that I might have some talent in, and what is it that I'm curious about? And this resulted in a bit of a squiggly career, which is still squiggling. To be honest, Zainab, here and now, I wish I had the assurance I had when I was younger, in terms of, this is where I need to go, this is what needs to happen. The more experience I get, the more difficult that it becomes to figure out what's next, because obviously I might want more from myself. And the whole experience tells me that this is an interesting place. So that's where I am now, where I can add most value and where I'm curious the most.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just telling you about this book that I'm reading. It's called Tiny Experiments, and it actually talks about how what you were saying actually, that in life it's human, it's the human nature. At every phase we want to experiment new things, and it's okay to try, and sometimes those trials make you generate a good value for your environment and your surrounding you were not even aware of. So your path is actually one of the most excellent paths, according to the book I'm reading.
Yeah, good to know. I'll make sure to share it in the event description, the podcast notes, so I'll have a look.
And for professionals who feel stuck at a crossroads and hesitating to either step into leadership or step into another endeavor, how do you help them get the courage and fight the self doubt and resistance when it shows up?
Well, I think that's a great question, right? And it shows up a lot because of what we spoke about before, right? It's just perfectly natural to try to feel secure, to find a way to live your life that you don't have to constantly be exposed to the tension. And that's a choice, right? The main thing I always try to help my clients with is simple. Make the choices you want to make, right? Make it the choice that you're making and not someone else is making. Right? Do you want to be a leader? Is that your choice? Or maybe you don't want it. Or maybe you want it in a couple of years once you get some validation for certificates, experience, whatever, right? What is the choice you want to make that will help you design the life you want to live? The worst thing, and the thing that I see my clients do a lot when I help them get away from, is finding distractions, finding excuses. And look, I don't mean that everyone should be an NBA basketball star or a great singer. It's not what I mean at all, right? I don't want to sound like I'm selling you a surefire recipe for success. That's different. And I don't believe there is one. What I do, however, believe is so many people are surrendering choice. So many people are not willing to choose how they want to live, choose what they want to do in a given situation. They neglect it, they wait, or they look at others to make their choice for them. Now, this unfortunately leads to misery, and I help a lot of my clients get away from that. But when you make the choice, I think having a coach is a great thing because they will help you keep yourselves accountable. Right? If you've made this choice really, well, there's actions you need to do to follow up on it. Or make the choice not to go there. It's fine. No one demands you to be a pop star or a astronaut. It's your life. And the question is, what is it that you want to design it to be? What is it that you'll need to do? And based on this, what's the choice that you're making? It's simple as that. I know that there are many people in many regions, and there's underrepresented communities. There's so much wrong with the world, and there are so many people, they do not have the choice. The choice has been made for them because of where or as whom or with what color they have been born, right? Sadly, they might feel like they might have no choice, and I fully understand that. Sadly, there are many people that have the privilege of choice and are not able to use it. They just prefer to complain. And some people that have been placed in a situation which is disadvantaged, and yet through their great choices, they've managed to live the life they want to live. And whatever it means for you, not necessarily a pop star.
Yeah, I agree with you. Many people think that following their own choices might maybe put them in a situation where they're confronted to something that society does not agree with, and they don't have the courage or the strength to be in this position, which actually sometimes, is only in their minds, and that's what coaches like you are here for.
But I would say that, when it comes to courage, I would be quite wary of that because, it's easy to blame someone for not having courage. But not having courage is also something that, I think there's always a bigger fish. As a public speaker, there's always a bigger room. If you're an actor, you'll always find that you have stage fright. this will never go away, right? And I'm not saying that there's an ultimate courage or the lack of thereof. What is necessary is to acknowledge that if we're afraid of something, is to bring it out and look at it and make the choice, right? I'll try it, or maybe I won't try it. And if this is a real choice I'm making, and if it helps me to live the way that I feel a part of my community and my role in life, I'm never going to judge you. As long as you're making choices for yourself. In fact, if you're giving others the choices to make, well, you still may be a good human being. We have to be compassionate for each other. And whatever you want to achieve, the only thing I'm asking is make it your choice.
Yeah, well, see, I'm already learning new things with you. You mentioned the environment. Some might be lucky to be in a good environment where they have the choice and the tools, and some might not be. And this podcast is also about expatriation and experiences in foreign lands. You yourself have lived at least between Poland and the UK.
I did. Now in the UK, yeah, I've moved. That's true.
And I'm sure you have coached people from different backgrounds, different cultures. Do you think this helps enlarge your horizon and learn new things from each person you've coached and each new environment and culture?
Well, I think absolutely. If you were to ask me the previous question some time ago, my answer would be greatly different. When you're living in a certain area, you take many things for granted. Exposing yourself to the multitude of views, whether you agree with them or not, and being really open-minded, naturally will expand your horizons. In my personal opinion, someone said to me that, being, I'll say it, an immigrant, someone that, takes life in their own hands and goes somewhere because they want to be there. I wasn't forced to move to the UK. I really wanted to. And I did. I don't think it's like a huge thing to do. I don't think, but for many people it is more difficult. Absolutely. People are risking lives to do that, right? It's, again, this point of view is different. But I had the privilege of, a burgundy passport that had just, let me fly in and start working, start being there. And it's an interesting experience, I think. There were moments when it felt difficult. There were moments when, I've had the looks. You can see my long name still. The same one, like my father and my, grandfather before him. I use TK because, it is a difficult one. Even in Poland, I've used TK. But the thing is that it always expands your horizon. But it's been a choice. And I know many people don't want to choose this. They feel like their life could be better where they are. And it's not only that I respect that, I think that's a great thing that they're making their choice. As long as the choice is theirs to make. Sometimes they're just not able to, and it just takes too much to do that, right? And it's fine. The worst thing that we can do is be frustrated.
Absolutely agree with you on this point. Let me shift to something very new, very trendy. Let's talk about AI and AI in coaching. So AI is increasingly entering the coaching space and every other space, to be honest, through pattern recognition, feedback simulation, and even role playing. Let's say for C-suite executives, as you mentioned, they are the ones who get most of the coaching. What would the expectation or the requirements from an AI-enabled coach, if I may call it this way, as a coach? What would you make sure that you understand from their needs and requirements, that you deliver, and maybe that you avoid?
That's a great one. I wish I, gave you a straight answer for that. But the interesting thing is that the domain is just so new, also for me, that I'm still developing my own thoughts regarding that. So, for instance, what I do is I have like I'm still developing it, a mini TK to also be enabled. So, where they can't get the full version, at one point, late at night, and coaching session is someone else, they can actually go and talk to the model that was trained by me, that can possibly provide them some of my thoughts, some of the things that I might have said. It's not, a perfect replica. Maybe at some point it will be, and I can just rest on the beach, it doing all the work for me. But I think that we cannot deny and hide our, head in the sand with this new industrial revolution. The important thing is to be aware of the current limitations, although they might go away as months and years go by and this technology gets more and more advanced. And the way I think about it is, it's like coaching through the camera, right? So it's we're not talking about the camera. It's just a tool that we're using to help us. And AIs, for now, before the Terminator revolution, when they decide to rebel, hopefully not. Hopefully they'll be smarter than us, and God bless them. They will be there to help, and they'll be there to make our human existence a bit better. And it's just making sure that we use the tools that we are creating in an appropriate fashion. I'm not saying that many people say that there's the human aspect, the human spark, and I always ask them, well, define it. Tell me what it is and what it isn't, right? Because Alan Turing has developed a Turing test years and years ago, and has been passed, I think, in 2010s or something. Now it's hard to discern, and it will be even harder with a higher quality video, voice. The way they write is already hard to discern if you remove the long hyphens, right? So in my mind, it's difficult to answer this question, because I think it will just get ubiquitous. But I think the answer I'll give you is this: if you are an AI-enabled coach or want to become one, think about how you can utilize this tool in a way that you utilize your keyboard, in a way to support you, right? If you have this mindset about AI, you will find ways of it helping you. Now, the challenge obviously is that AI is inherently a technology still. What I mean by that is some people have a very negative attitude towards technical things, and it's not that it's a shame. It's because of how technology has been created for ages to possibly be for the engineers that have designed it, not for the users. It has changed, but AIs are still in their, I wouldn't say infancy, whatever you want to call it, inception, genesis moment, when they're really technical. And I hope they'll be there for the masses. And yes, I think that they'll take away a lot of work from coaches. They're perfectly great to do coaching work, and I'm saying this on camera because they have and they will have even more the ability to really have the understanding, the curiosity, and the non-judgment by definition. They don't have our human biases and so on. There's still room for someone like myself with my lived experience and my way of being that people appreciate. But definitely having some help from AI is hopefully helpful.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with you. So you also host a Coach on the Rocks, which blends new insights and practical leadership lessons. What inspired the name? The name is very interesting. And what kind of conversations do you hope to spark through this platform?
Actually, interestingly, Coach on the Rocks is on hiatus right now. I'm hosting a new platform which I call Today's Hashtag Question. But I'll go back to your question and Coach on the Rocks. It's how in my life I have, been seeking. We all are searching for something. And at one point, I just found that trekking in the mountains across Europe was really helping me, get and find myself. So I was, when I was stepping on the rocks, I sometimes got people to snap some photos of myself, and I had a nice photo looking at the sky while sitting on a rock. So it becomes a Coach on the Rocks. A catchy title, but the conversations there are mainly about living as a coach and my work as a coach, and what is it that it brings to me, my clients, and what am I learning? And hopefully, what is it that people would like to listen to?
Interesting, actually. I'm a nature's lover myself, and it brings new insights to one's mind to be close to nature. Yeah, one final question. If you could leave every leader with one, I would say, update or one coaching advice to apply immediately, what would it be and why?
To reflect. Because doing without reflecting can lead you astray. Reflect on the way you lead, why you're making these decisions, and spend time for your own self-reflection. I think that's the best gift that you can give to yourself, with a coach or not, right? A coach can help, obviously, with this process, but it essentially is this: helping you self-reflect to get to a goal. And if you don't have a coach, and you can't find anyone to help you, I would definitely appreciate if you ask. But if not, just take a piece of paper, because it's best to do when writing, and reflect on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what impact are you making. What is it that how are you touching the people around you with your leadership, with your work, and what is it that you want to achieve? What are the choices you want to make? Reflection, the key not only to leadership, but I think to life.
Okay, reflection, making a choice, and living by your own choice. I think these are the two big pillars we talked about today. Thank you, TK, for your amazing insight. I myself learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience will also learn a lot. I will keep the link to your webinar for people to tune in.
Thank you for the invitation, Zainab.
And thank you very much to our audience. Thank you for listening to us. I hope you will benefit from our podcast. Please don't hesitate to share, to follow, and subscribe, and stay curious. Thank you very much.